Welcome back, Me Immortals, to another edition of the Meanderings. We've got Meanderings here at the Me Immortals. We've got Juan on one side of the corner,
Captain Kyron on the other side.
and we are outdoors for a meandering session to philosophize out in the park. Meanderings is a chance for us to have a conversation about openly anything we want to, in a simpler, more fun context. My theme for today, I think, is going to be overwhelmed.
Got a theme. Nice.
Overwhelmed.
Okay.
And I didn't want it to become a theme, but it seemed to. In the last 20 minutes. Why is that, Me Immortals? Well, I'm driving here. It was quite busy. There's a couple of games on right now in the city that we are in Brisbane.
Sports games.
And it was just busy. Hard to find a car park. Now, normally where I park the car, it is in Kangaroo Point, where for us it's, let's just say, a 20-minute walk from the location that we are currently. And there's a particular narrow road that you have to get through. Now, I couldn't find car parks that were closer to us. It was further away. And so you have to go through this particular road, which at best of times you can get two cars, but
you can fit two cars, but it's 5 centimeters between mirrors,
Exactly.
5 centimeters to the other side. It's a nice paved road, but it goes for about, I'd say, like 150, 200 meters maybe, and it's got a slight curve the whole way. So once you enter it, you can't see if someone else is at the other end.
Like
coming.
once you go in, the other person might be coming and you won't see them. Now, as we said, you've got enough space, but it is quite tight. Now, I hadn't even entered the road and I saw a car coming, so I pulled off to the side to give them enough time and space to be able to go through.
Yep.
And I went as close to the railing as I could. In fact, I could see that if I'd moved half a centimeter more, my side mirror was going to hit the railing. So I went, cool, I'm in a good position. This car is a white Hyundai i30. I'm going to call it out specifically. It's a white Hyundai i30.
Not a big car, from what I know.
No, it's a smallish car. And it was, I believe, what it seemed like to me, they were overwhelmed. Because as they came closer and closer, they seemed, unbeknownst that a car, first of all, was there. So they were basically driving like directly into me. And also then they would notice, and then they would kind of have to go sideways. Now on the other side is a big rock wall. Now it's pretty far away from the thing, but there's a few rocks here and there, right? Now they wound down their windows a little bit as I approaching my car, and I'm basically parked at this point. I'm parked, I'm not moving. I'm giving them all the space they want, and they slowly inch forward. Now they got halfway, like across to my car. Let's just say, so their front had gone past my front, obviously driving like towards me, and they're about halfway down my car when they basically just came to a complete stop. Now at that point, I was thinking, what's going on? Is it because they want me to drive?
You're at the entrance, right?
I'm at the entrance. So here,
even the entrance is fairly narrow. People,
it is.
Say that.
Normally, you'd probably expect the car to keep on driving through, which is what I wanted to do. I was sitting there and like, I don't know what's really happening. I'll move up slightly. Wrong move. Seemed like they were overwhelmed. Started screaming from the car, windows down, screaming like, "Watch out! Watch out!" I was like, "Okay, I just won't move." But then proceeded to basically floor it forward straight into the rock and just smash their car like straight into the side. At which point I was like, okay, like
what? That was not how I was expecting the story to go.
So I now kept on driving. I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep driving now because you guys just went into it.
So they opened up lots of space
one of the
for you now,
passengers
right?
got out of the car and started running after the car.
After
my car. At which point I just like kept on driving out. Now it's 150 to 200 meters, right? Now I kept on driving, and then more cars were still coming from there. Now, to give you an idea, folks, just how much this is not my fault, I drove past other cars in this little narrow area. Nothing happened. No issues happened. But
no one floored into rock
I think
walls.
probably like rationality hit them about halfway down because they were running like behind my car, and they got halfway to the other car park, but they were like, okay. And then I saw them like run back all the way to their car. I parked the car. It took a while because there was still a lot of
your
cars.
car's getting scratched.
I walked all the way, all the way back, and they were gone. They actually had driven away. So I went at that moment. I was like, "Wow! I wonder if they just got really overwhelmed. Like they got really overwhelmed. They were like, I don't know what's going on here." Floored it straight into a rock, and then just like lost it. And we're like, what are we gonna do?
That is quite bizarre.
So anyway, that was like, I just saw it and I was like, man, I was gonna share it with you, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna leave it for the podcast just to hear that. But beyond that, to the theme I wanted to talk about being overwhelmed, because so completely separate, but in the overwhelmed theme was I bought a new phone, folks, not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was slightly overwhelmed when I bought it. So iPhone 13, I've been an Android user for basically all of my life, and I just wasn't sure how to use it. I was slightly overwhelmed. However, I started to go my way into the handling of it. Now I'm really enjoying it. There's a few things I'm still finding and utilizing, but for the most part, it's like, I'm okay. I'm getting now the technology. But one of the aspects that experience, and also teaching my sister about NFTs and cryptocurrency and a few other things, found was, man, the pace of technology, just in general, as you'd expect, it is speeding up. It's speeding up. Things are happening quicker and quicker and quicker. But almost to the point that it made me think, damn, imagine if I hadn't swapped phones, let's just say, from what I had, what was known to me, for another 5 years. Could the iPhone have gone to such a point, or another phone gone to such a point?
I have done that.
That it's like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just too far beyond me now. I can't keep this up. And also in a similar vein, whether it's cryptocurrencies or other technologies, where if you don't get into them almost at the early days of it, you almost have no chance of keeping up, because it's evolving faster than you're even learning about, to the point that it's like, okay, man, this is a struggle. So the overwhelm of technology speeding up, causing you to feel a little bit overwhelmed about it. I don't know how we would feel.
No, I don't think that's correct. So like I mentioned, I did have an iPhone 4 or 5, which I had from 20. When did I get the new one? It was just before I left for South America, so that was start of 2018, and I had this phone for at least 5 years, probably close to 6. The jump up from that was pretty big. Like, it had fingerprint scanners and apps. Like, wow, you can actually use apps. Like, I wasn't using apps at all on this other one. But I don't buy so much that the technology gets too much, because I sort of, my rationale is, people's IQs, yes, they decline slightly as you age, but it's not like you go from, Einstein to monkey. You go from, not Einstein to slightly less.
Well, I guess I wasn't thinking about it from like the intelligence of a human, but more in the sense of, if a step change happened where in 10 years' time, say Apple go down the path of, oh, now you only need eye movements to type, and you haven't been used to the first 3 years or 4 years of doing it, and all of a sudden you go into it, and it's like, oh no, if you want to say yes, you actually have to look up 3 times and down 4 times, almost like learning a new language on that, like, sort of stylus. Now, that sort of level started becoming commonplace, and then it moves into, it's all mind to, like, you think this, but you have to think it in a particular way, and the exclamation this. And if you're not in that technology at the beginning, even me thinking about that, I go, man, I feel like it'd be almost learning like a new language in technology or operating. Yeah,
once again, I'm more on the side that it's they make the technology so easy. Like, they make it for the dum-dums, the dumbest of the dumbs, so that even they can use it. What I'd be more convinced by is the way that people use it, for example. So getting Instagram and sort of going, oh, this is how you take a photo, this is how you do a reel and things like that. I don't think that part would be overwhelming, but the overwhelming part would be interacting with other people on it, and
good point.
The mechanisms like that. When I first started using Discord, I just had no idea what was going on. Everyone's saying GM, everyone's, it's so hard to keep up with. Okay, I'm so used to forums where you can search, where you can sort of backtrack, where there's individual threads, whereas these are more just a continual line of information.
Well, I guess what I would say here is, like, let's imagine that experience of like a GM basically, and being like, well, I don't know what a GM here means, but in the growth and just it
means good
not
morning.
even growth tech, just pure growth for growth's sake, starts getting into some levels where daily, like a new day will come and just something like pretty radically different. You'll be like, I have no idea what this is, and you'll learn it, and then the next day will be like, okay, again, I don't know what's going on, and again, start again.
More the cultural parts. I think that part could be overwhelming.
Yeah.
But the actual tech itself, I don't know, man. That's
maybe I was thinking about it. Perhaps you're right, but maybe I was thinking about it almost in the leading, not the leading edge, but always being into new technology. I guess I'm saying, where maybe the growth in tech starts to accelerate so fast that you simply can't keep up with all of the new frontier tech or the newest tech. It's like, no, you can't. You just have to like select something and agree that you'll never know about this other path, in a similar sense that I guess with cryptocurrencies in general, or just blockchain in general, like, you know, you're going to pick maybe Cardano, maybe Ethereum, but it sure as hell you're not going to know about the thousands and thousands of permutations of different coins or blockchains or whatever else you might have it, because it's just evolving so quickly that you look into one and a week later you look into another and might have already changed, forked, whatever, and you're like, I have no idea. I don't know about the change there.
Yeah, I think a more apt thing to comment on would be, as the capability to form more different groups, everything's going online and digital. Did you listen to that recent podcast with Balaji and Tim Ferriss?
No, I haven't yet.
Okay, so Balaji, we've talked about him on here before, but he used to work high up in Coinbase, I believe it was, and he sort of he's one of those guys who can just talk. He's obviously read a lot of history. He's really well read, and he's also not afraid of throwing his opinions out. So when he gets on a rant, man, he can rant, which, you know, is good and bad aspects to that. But he was talking on that podcast a lot about, I suppose, what's coming up for the future, sort of what he potentially sees. So he thinks it's more going to be a fight between centralization and decentralization, i.e. anarchy and control. And so he sees it more, the Chinese are going to have more of a control aspect. They're really going to try and lock down. The American style, you know, BLM and all these groups, political groups, are going to splinter the country even more and more. The individual states will splinter more and more and more. And he was advocating for more like a re-centralization aspect. In any case, the anarchy part, where it's the ability to form all of these different groups and stuff,
yeah,
you know, that's something new, and I think that's going to really be hard to get a handle on, because everyone will have, I don't know, 15 different groups you're part of. You know, I'm part of the like Cardano blockchain group. I'm also part of the Brisbane handstanders group.
Yep.
I'm also part of the bilinguist group, and just with the ability to form more of these groups online and for it to become a better experience online, that could be overwhelming, where, you know, I'm talking about linguist stuff and you're just like, I don't care, like that, this doesn't map onto any reality that I know, because my reality is about this football team drinking beer.
But an example even there directly to the language might be like, you know, you're learning of a new language, and then we've got like technology that maps directly. You don't even need language anymore. You just think, and that translation can do it. So it's like, well, yep, we just move beyond even languages there. So it's like, well, okay.
Here's another one. So in that podcast, he was talking how the sort of the rise of India, and the Indians are going to be the predominant English speakers on the internet within a couple of decades, because they just have so many people there. And so how is that going to shape discourse online? Well, you know, it's going to be heavily India influenced. There'll be probably, you know, memes and terms that we don't know now that'll be specific Indian words that incorporate into our just everyday language.
I disagree. I disagree with him there, because unless you're telling me that, are you getting served currently all the Indian memes and Russian memes? Like, you're not, because it's like the internet for the general purpose of Web 2 that you interact with. It's largely tailored to you. Like, you ain't getting fed random.
But this is what he's saying. They're going to be
in its totality. I would agree, but it's not like you're going to notice.
Well, I think I predict. If sort of what he's saying, he made a pretty good convincing argument. I'll sort of say, if what he says is true, then I would predict that I would be using words that are Indian, that sort of like how we use Schadenfreude. You know, that's a German word, but we use it. Kindergarten, German word, but we use it. So by his predictions, we would start using...
I've never heard Schadenfreude.
Schadenfreude? It's that deriving pleasure from someone else's misfortune, I guess. Okay, that's a pretty common one. I know that
translation, but I've never heard anybody in Australia ever use it.
It's pretty common.
Okay.
Look, not pretty common, but it's semi... Let's just stick with kindergarten. Everyone uses kindergarten.
That's true, yeah.
So... by that, you'd predict, okay, there'll be some Indian words that make it into the English lexicon, just like Australians invented the word selfie, and now selfie is
Was it Australian?
Yeah, an Australian,
yeah.
some
Where-
mad lad Aussie.
Where'd you pull that from?
Oh man, that's a common internet.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it a true thing?
I'm relatively sure. I'd put my surety of that at high 90s.
High 90s.
High 90s. In any case, what would someone who's not connected particularly to the online sphere start thinking if I just start saying, include a random Indian word in my everyday language, and they're just like, what? why are you starting to speak like semi-Indian or semi-Hindi now,
Well, phones. Speaking of tech, the phone's completely frozen, as you would. But
Shitty Apple.
It does come up with a guy called Dr. Carl, who's a radio host.
Yeah, pretty
like in
famous guy
2002.
here.
Yeah. No, but it's not that Carl. It's another Carl. I don't know if you know that radio host guy. I've never seen him before.
Maybe not, no.
But yeah, looks like it's an Australian thing. It's selfie is an example of hypochorism, a type of word formation that is popular in Australia, where it was in general used before gaining wider acceptance. There you go. I did not know that. That's
Repping
crazy.
the Aussie. I'm actually going to be speaking with Pete from Aussie English soon, just for another catch-up, and I'm sure we'll start talking about languages, and in particular I'm going to ask him about how his use of English has changed, because he's so devoted. He's created a whole lifestyle around Aussie English. How his own behaviours have sort of modified, and his own use, because he's sort of playing it up a little bit. Like he's going to start saying things like "you mob." What were some of
introducing like it's like what you think Australian is,
Yeah.
but now is like
and even just
how he talks.
even just phrases like a drop in the ocean. What does that mean? We know what that means. It's not literal, but
That's
those
definitely not
things like
Australian
that.
slang though.
no. But he
But like that's
he
sort
has-
of slang, I guess. Yeah, okay,
he has
gotcha,
those
gotcha.
sorts of things. Yeah.
The only other thing, so to round out the overwhelming aspect of, because there's another technology thing. Have you heard of OpenAI?
Yes.
And of OpenAI, DALL-E and
Yes.
DALL-E 2.
Yeah.
So DALL-E and DALL-E 2. Have you played around with DALL-E or DALL-E 2 at all?
No, I saw a bunch of it popping up, and I
Yep.
just went, "Oh, that's kind of funny, but I don't need to try it myself."
Yeah, okay. So I signed myself up to try and see if I could use DALL-E 2 just to try it out. And Chris Dixon actually had a blog about it and talked about DALL-E 2, that he tried it out. And the level, at least he said, and the people who have utilized it were like, the level of things that it pops out with, of just like randomness from an artistic, perspective, is like so wild that it made me think, being like, well, you'd almost not even need like an artistic, creative person at this point. You just type in the random text, generate. And for those people who don't know, DALL-E and its successor, DALL-E 2, is basically an OpenAI algorithm where you type in the astronaut riding on a horse in space, and it'll create that image. But even going beyond, you
Bears
can also
creating sculptures.
yeah, and then even beyond, you can make it go, I want it to be in the style of Salvador Dali, or I want it to be in handwritten paper, I want it to be in algorithm code, I want it to be all this sort of stuff, and it'll just create it. And in various permutations. But even more, it'll do Photoshop style as well, where you can have a picture and you can point to like a pool and be like, add a flamingo, and it'll give you 17 different ways that it can add flamingos into it. And basically doing Photoshop, like what you would do with Photoshop, but over the top, on top of it as an algorithm. And I was like, oh, imagine someone who is maybe deep in the craft in the space of photoshopping or artistic creation or whatever. And this thing, in the background just goes on its way, merry way, 3 or 4 years. And then you're in the office like, oh, I'm coming in. And then they're like, we're replacing you with this algorithm. Like, see you later. And you'd be like, whoa, where did that tech come from? Like, and I knew of DALL-E, but I didn't know of the second generation of it already that had been created. So I guess that was for me. I was like, okay, if you don't keep your pulse on some of the maybe some of the tech going around, I feel like you could get overwhelmed in some of those spaces as well.
Yeah, you could get wrecked. You could certainly, if you're out of the loop for a decade, your job could be gone for sure.
Yeah, so those are some of the techie things, plus the initial getting here.
Are you excited by it?
I think it'll be good. I think it'll be
I'm
good.
Excited as man.
But I think that there's going to be aspects, for me at least, of almost FOMO, of like missing out on just other areas that I just don't have the time to look into, because you just have to specialize more and more and more and more. And I go, man, I really wanted to like focus in on this, but now it's just gone on its merry way and I'll never know about it anymore. Like, I used to keep up a lot with like what was happening with the Large Hadron Collider and all of the quarks and things that were coming out, and I just haven't had any time to ever look into it again for many years, being like, oh, it would be cool to know, and I know that it just turned them back on and all the stuff that's been happening with it, but I'm like, I just don't know. I have no idea where they're up to with any of the smashes or what they're finding or blah, 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 blah.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah, well, I was that Balaji podcast was cool. I was going to even mention it just because I'm enjoying filtering out crypto things. So for those who haven't seen the monthly goals, one of my goals was to consume less.
Yep.
Actually, especially the short term. What's happening with this project? What's happening with that?
I must say, I haven't actually done that at all. I haven't been doing that at all.
Because you're ignorant.
I've even been ignorant.
Ignorant.
What is ignorant?
It's a joke. It's a joke of ignorant.
Oh, God.
It's like saying ignorant wrong.
No,
calling someone ignorant and you say ignorant wrong.
Yeah, ignorant. I haven't even been like looking into it, and I don't think I ever did. Like, apart from Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, Matic, and maybe like a handful of others, I have never been like, I'm going to look at what like Hive is doing, and I'm going to look at, this point has gone up 30% in the last 2 weeks. Must look at it. Like, I've never been like, oh, I even cared to look at that. But maybe there is, because also I'm like, I know it's going up, but it's probably just going to be a short-term thing, so I just can't be bothered like wasting any energy in that space. But yeah, you have completely been pulling away from like that general conversation into other fields for the time being.
just going back into my regular consumption of podcasts, which was more, ones I'd never heard of before. So, sort of the value for value podcast where I listen to new podcasts and do that. Doing a bit more of that, going back to some old favorites like Joe Rogan, Tim Ferriss.
Holy shit, you started listening to Joe Rogan again?
Just some clips here and there. Yeah, I still don't... The Spotify experience still annoys me too much for me to actually ever particularly use it.
I'm going to tell you, Oscar, Spotify's still better than Fountain. I'm going to say it.
Why is that?
But I want it to be... I find it a more easier, like simpler styling. I like the fact that it keeps track of my like listened episodes and downloaded episodes and stuff like that. But I will call that Spotify. And this is amazing. This is like a kudos to Oscar. That Fountain, even in my eyes, is probably getting close to beating Spotify and its stylus. And that's huge. Like, that to me is like, wow, that's like me who will not want to listen on YouTube because I like the experience on Spotify. If I'm about to say like, oh, I'd actually go and use another app and utilize it there, then it gives me an indication that I'm like, oh, a lot of humanity could start really going into that if they feel that way as well. But I think it's like I've used Spotify for such a long time, and it's like my entrenched feeling of what it should be to listen to a podcast.
I think it's more that than anything else.
I've shown some people Fountain Up in comparison to Spotify, because like some people have like Spotify Premium predominantly, and they come out, they go like, why do you use YouTube Premium? Like, Spotify Premium is what I use, and I have had comments, people be like, well, Spotify Premium is still like a better thing if I'm paying $6.99 and it's a better experience.
If you're listening to music, I mean, although with YouTube you get the YouTube music as well.
Well, sorry, that's been the conversation with like, why would I get like a podcasting app type of deal if the experience is better here and might end up cheaper?
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, but it's starting to get close.
Because they're ignorant. That's why.
Man, I've never heard that joke. Where was that from?
It's a pretty common one.
Man, Karen's coming up with the Australian terms I've never heard.
I'm on top of all the slang, mate. I am the slang master.
Are you starting to get some slang in German?
No, not really. Okay. Not really.
Okay. I learned slang today, like French slang today.
I stay away from it for the most part until
they told me that you actually have to. So,
shit, man.
This is Duolingo.
Oh, no, they don't know shit,
I know. So it's like, Saturday is summer day, right? Saturday is summer day.
Okay.
Yes, correct. But they're like, but don't say summer day. Say someday. And I was like, okay, why? They're like, and like we were saying, like, oh, that's a slang. No one uses summer day. They use someday. And I was like, are you sure? Is this correct?
Yeah, look, it's hard. It's hard. There's like quisiera in Spanish. Not many people use that, and it's very, like quisiera. So like, I would like to order quisiera pedir. Not many people use that. It's a real sort of formal way of saying it. It's more like
quiero.
Yeah, quiero. Quiero. So like, I want that thing.
Yep.
But it can be useful to know the derivation, or like where things come from. Yeah, I'll give them a pass on that.
Okay.
I'll give them a pass on that. But yes, there are certain slang where it's like, this is just too out of the way. It's just too... There's no... Unless you really, really want to sound like a Colombian. Like, I've never wanted to sound like a Colombian. I've just wanted to speak Spanish. So, yeah, so unless you go on the full route, that learning all of that slang, and there's so much, man. Oh, good Lord. There's so many things.
I don't know if you can learn that either without being, like, embedded into the culture.
You have
as
to
well.
be there.
You have to be in there to learn to that level, yeah.
Although everyone who's in Aussie English and learning Aussie English from abroad, I wish you well. So here's a couple of things. Creating some clips has actually made me realize. So I've been getting back on board with creating clips and TikToks and things like that, and it's made me realize just how good short, sharp questions are sometimes. Really to the point, because it's then I can ask it, you can respond, and it just flows nicely. So
that's one aspect of that I do like Twitter. It's that it does restrain you to a short answer or a short question or a short phrase that should be punchy enough.
Yeah,
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. Sometimes waffling isn't super helpful. So here's one for you. What to do when you get a minor injury? So if you got a minor injury and you're trying to become world class, or you're trying to really improve, what do you do when you have a minor injury?
Fight straight through it.
Yeah.
Fuck it. Yeah, and taking time off. Yeah, I think if minor injury,
Dang.
go straight through. Yeah.
This guy.
Yeah, and what's the question though? Like, is a question to minor injury and you're just doing training, or minor injury and you're competing?
But
if you're minor injury and you're competing, like newsflash for most people, like at like top levels, everyone's got injuries. Like you probably don't have don't have injuries.
Just
it's
training, like, because I don't compete, so we'll put it for the training aspect.
I guess. I mean, if you're just training, there are I'd probably say take a time off, a shortened time off, not like a longer time off, not like a being lazy type, but you might go, okay, I want to do example, I might get a really sore back or deadlifting, and I won't do back for 2 days, and then I might be able to get back into it. And if it's a little bit sore, well, that's okay, as long as it's not like critical sore or it's going to lead to worse things, fine. But if it's a minor injury, I'd be more tempted to go down the path of just push through it and be safe than sit back. I'd say that. Yep. Okay, cool. What would you go?
Yeah, well, so why this came up was because the day that it was released of the podcast where I'm saying I'm going to become world-class handstander was the day that I had this little niggling injury from the day before, blew up into something where it went, okay, I need to make a decision here on what I'm going to do. Yep. Like, this requires some... Before it was tiny niggling. I changed up a workout, but I pressed through with it. Then it went, okay, no, this is actually a bigger thing, and especially the day that I was talking about how I'm going to become world class. This sort of shit comes up, and I'm like, of course. So basically, my thoughts are, I've always had the sort of mentality that the long term is the best, and long term you should probably err more on the side of making sure it's healed rather than pushing through. So if it's at, let's just say 80% hurt, and you go, no, I'm not going to train on 80% hurt, and then the next day it's 60%, I would still be saying don't do anything with it. Let it get to below 10%. So I'm just chucking some random numbers out because that's the easiest way to sort of describe this thing. So I'm more on the side of really leaving it and really letting it rest up and heal. And I'm just from my life, I would say, how many cumulative days, weeks, months, even years do you think you've lost due to just injuries in general? And this can be like, if you do a 50% day, that's half a day lost that you've sort of done.
Yeah, I'd say like 6 months. More
6
than that,
months? Yeah. See, I'd probably put myself at a month maybe, if that. Like, it's not a big amount that I've lost.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And I put that mostly down to giving it more time than is needed. So
I disagree. I reckon it's because you haven't played sports for a longer period of your life. I think you played sports Probably 14 years old till 25.
No, like 10 until it was like less 10 until 21.
Yeah.
Add an extra year on.
Yeah, I would say it'd be interesting. I wonder if there's any stats, but I think if you continue to play sports, you're just going to find more injuries.
But I'm talking about exercising in general as well. Like I haven't not been doing stuff. Like I've been in the gym.
There's like a percentage thing of being like, what's the percentage rate of like injuries for particular workouts, and like gym is one of the lowest you can possibly do as for being injuries. But playing rugby, or you're playing touch, or you're playing something like it's just a higher probability of injuries. So someone out there might be like, well, I get injured once a whole month every year, and I'll be like, holy shit, that's quite a lot. Like maybe you should rethink it. But I think it depends. For general activity, I'd say for sure. Like if you just want to be like average, maybe a little bit more than average, or you're consistent and you just really enjoy it, then when a little injury comes, absolutely, like take the time off.
So you don't think you could become world class at something and have a mentality where
you would be the exception.
More on the side.
You would be the exception if you became world class at something without pushing through some of those necessary things. I would say you are more towards an exception than it would be the norm.
Okay.
Sure. Like, I'm only finding this from, I don't know about handstands, but I'm thinking rugby games, soccer games, CrossFit people. You ever hear any CrossFit people like compete and stuff like that, dude? All of them are injured all the time. And it's like, you just compete, doesn't matter. Same thing with rugby. Most of them are usually quite injured. It's like, it's literally just a level of, you get fit. As I do, there's an off-season and an on-season. In the off-season, you get really fit. In the on-season, you're basically just trying to recover fast enough to continue to play. That's basically it. So you're getting yourself almost continuously injured in very small ways, and you got to keep on performing. Like, you just keep on going. You don't go, all right, I've got to take off 2 weeks for this particular thing. It's like, oh no, if you can still like run like at 90%, you're still doing it. Like, that's what you have to perform at. But I'm sure there's like exceptions to the rule out there where them taking like the time off in whatever sport or domain, maybe things like golf or something like that, where it's like a longer time frame that you have the ability to act out to become world class. So maybe that may be with handstands. I might fall in that because you do have a longer time period to play with.
Yeah.
But maybe the shorter domains of rugby or soccer's a little bit longer, but others that are more shorter time domain where you've only got 15 to 20 years to make something happen. It's like, okay, if you're taking then that week away, it becomes so much more impactful in the small space that you have to become world class. So like it's hard to be world class in rugby because there's so many do you call it world? Is it like the World Cup?
Yeah,
3 people are playing.
Yeah.
But if you've got
Australia.
if you've got like one season and you're like, oh, I need to take 3 weeks off because I've got a niggle injury, but that is what doesn't enable you to get to the next division, and then the next division you need another like pretty hardcore slug to then get to the top levels. It's like if you give that up and then you're 3 years back and et cetera, it's like, oh, you'll never make it now because you didn't have the opportunity. You have to start it young enough. But maybe not for handstands, because if handstands you could literally be like the world class at 90 years old and be totally fine.
Yeah, no, probably not that, but
you could be much older. Like you could be way older.
Yeah,
and be.
Yeah, I think you could probably be in your 40s or 50s and still be like a world class handstander. Yeah,
and maybe in those spaces, it just remains the time domain that you have available to it.
Okay. Yeah. See, yeah, my mentality is people push too much, too hard, and it ends up costing them in the long term.
But again, remember you're saying minor injury, like, and here's where like I agree. If you've got a minor injury, like you said, and then you push like for a day, and then it's like, oh, it's become a little bit worse. Absolutely, like, don't be an idiot. Take the time off, like, and that would be like anybody in any domain. Like, you're gonna do yourself worse if you just keep pushing, even beyond that into like something worse. But if it's like, a niggling shoulder, like if you scraped your shin, right, doing a deadlift, and it's bleeding, right? Now it's like that's a minor injury.
Yep.
Now, if you're a powerlifter, is the answer, don't do it for 1 week until your scab heals? Or is it put a pad, put tape over the top of it, and keep on going? The answer's probably going to be keep on going. Like, don't wait for it to heal. You can keep on going. That would be like a minor injury that if you choose to take away, I feel like you're being lazy at that point. Like, you can do something to get around it. But if it's proper structural damage or like a minor injury through your, I don't know, heel that is causing you to whatever, okay, then you back it up. Actually, perfect example. The other day, a couple of weeks ago, I was squatting, and the day before my ankle either I rolled it or something happened, but it was just a little bit sore. The next day I did squats, and I could feel my knee hurting.
Okay.
So I was like, that particular, I was like, okay, I still want to do legs. I'm going to back it all the way up in weight. I'm not going to do much weight. It'll just be quite light. It was still quite sore. So I was like, okay, that's fine. If it hurts and like 2 days later when I'm doing another like leg sort of movement, I'll take another day off and just heal it. But by the time, it was fine. Now, maybe in this mentality of like, oh, if you get a little injury, do you like back away? I guess in my mind, I think like, oh, you do a squat and like, oh, it feels a bit niggly, and you just leave it. And I'm like, okay, no, that's too far back. I'd be like, okay, no. But then if it starts getting worse, okay, cool, yeah, pull away.
Yeah,
that'd be my mentality.
I guess it depends on the type as well. Yeah, if it's more of a aesthetic injury, like you were saying with the shin scab, no, a shin scab's not going to stop you from.
That's what I mean.
Doing.
Yeah.
But so in particular, for those just curious, I don't know what it is, but I think like something in my rotator cuff. If I had to guess, that's I pinched something there, and really just sort of pressing movements.
Yeah.
I feel a really sharp pain in there. And yeah, my mentality has been over these last couple of days, I need to do everything that I can so that I am not aggravating it at all. And so this starts in the bedroom, like when I wake up in the morning, open the blinds, I make sure I'm doing that with my left arm, and that I'm not, putting myself in a weird position to do that. And basically, yeah, the strategy I've always followed is take more time than perhaps is like don't test it too much. Don't.
I mean, if you have the time, take the time. If you want to be world class in something that sometimes you don't have the time, well then you got a choice. Like either you become world class and you probably wreck your body, or you don't. And
then this is another aspect where it's like, I get the feeling that people aren't hitting their optimal because they're taking that mentality, and they're not realizing maybe they have more time than necessary. In some
aspects, for sure. I mean, the better people who listen to Mere Mortals, like, yeah, absolutely. I think that for the general population, just 100% right. I would doubt you would say that to someone like in a mixed martial arts space. Imagine if someone's got a bent finger, like a broken finger, in fact, is the answer that they've got the title fight coming up in 3 months, that you don't train and you don't do the fight, and then it's like, well, you didn't do the fight, now you're probably not on the card anymore, and that's it. That's your career over. Or do you do it and you're like, well, I got to go in with this little injury.
But then the other, okay, so that's a perfect one. Then I could say, okay, yes, you do that, but what about the title fight in a year, which you can't do now because you've broken your hand?
Well, but it comes, if you don't do it, you don't have that next year. That's the thing. Like, that's what I was saying with the time, like the time matter. It's like, say you got something big coming up. It's like this might be your only opportunity. As in, like, if you say like, oh no, I'll rest and I'll come back next year. It's like, oh, oops, you don't have it next year. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So I think the funny thing is we're arguing more just about time scale, and I think if I had to bet, I would say the better strategy is to take a longer term look, just in almost all. I guess
in the sheer amount that I've heard of champions, of people who win, and the injuries that they were going through, I've struggled to hear a winning or a champion or something like that where they said, "Yep, I just rested, I took the time where I needed it, and I was like fit and healthy, and did it." Like, I'll even say, any mere mortalite out there, send me something where someone says that. Yeah. So I don't even think you'll find that.
Yeah, and then I guess the question is, did they reach their despite?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I think that if you get there like that, you're not the norm. You're just the odd one out. That if you were able to do that and become a champion, like, I agree, it probably does happen, but you're not the norm. I think that it's just it just so happened that you were able to do that because you're like a freak of whatever, and you were going to be the best regardless, type of deal. Yeah. Not to say that they were going to be worse or better, just not the norm.
Yeah. In any case, I'm going to follow my strategy because I believe that's the way to go, and so more time off and being uber careful about it is how I believe that I personally at least will.
Well, I'm transitioning to that as well, more and more as well for me, but in the sense of like, for my training, I'm like, do I take 3 days off? Yes, I can take 3 days if I'm like feeling sick or whatever. Cool, that's fine, because I'm not
lazy.
Trying to get to like lazy. World class. Whereas if you're like a pussy doing handstands, like, man, you can do whatever you want. Like, you literally don't even have to worry about anything.
Man, You're just as easy to rile up as I am sometimes.
But that's the thing. If you had like plenty of years to do it, then hence like it's like, okay, well, yeah, it'd be dumb for you to like be pushing through a sore shoulder if you can just take the week off and then be back into it again. Because in the totality of the available time that you have, it's like it's 0.001%. But if you got 5 years, then shit, like you're taking away 1%. And it's like, okay, that might be valuable to like not to take away.
Yeah. The thing I actually, funnily enough, struggle most with is having, like, realizing I need to take some time off in one regard, but then also then getting the motivation to not completely just do things. Because I'm so strict with my, my schedule, with what I want to do on that day. When I know now I can't do this on this day, like this isn't the best thing to do. I find it hard to switch gears and be like, okay, what can I do?
Yeah.
Okay, I can now do hip flexor work, which I fucking hate. I can now do ab work, which I also quite dislike. And getting that motivation sometimes is hard for me. I think that's what I struggle with. And if I want to become world class, that's what I need to address and really not let it's not the deterrent. It's almost like my own mindset in being so strict and so routine is backfiring, and it's like, shit, now I need to know, okay, now I need to be flexible with what I need to do. Now I need to be a bit more open to, okay, it's not written down, but I can still do some stuff. That sort of thing. So yeah, that was just what's been going through my mind this week.
Good. All right, me models, I think we'll leave it there for Meanderings today. Now, once again, if you've enjoyed the podcast today and you haven't helped us out in our value for value way,
outrageous.
Well, first of all, if you want to find out a little bit more, I'd probably say, one, go to our website if you want to go check out the how you can support us. So there are some links, handy links there, as well as links in the top right of different podcasting 2.0 platforms that you can utilize to be listening to us, as well as being able to send us through
I've got one. I've got a real direct thing which we haven't mentioned in a while. So one is sharing it with someone. So if you know someone who's got strong views about injuries or taking time off, trying to become world class, that sort of thing, share this with them because they could find it interesting. And then the other is also creating clips. So if you create a clip on Fountain, for example, you found a part which you liked and you think others might find interesting, if you create it on there, you can get rewarded with Satoshis from other people on the platform. And a couple of my clips, for example, that I created ages ago, they've got like 900 or multiple hundreds of Satoshis being like it's sort of like a like, but with a 0.00011 cent,
addition to it,
which is cool. It's cool and an exciting way to, I suppose, do something that you might not normally do, but it's like that tiny little extra incentive that puts you over the
of wanting to do it.
Yep.
There you go. All right, well, we'll leave it at that. Me and Mortal Lines, I hope you enjoyed the meandering session. For now, Juan out.
Karen out. Yeah.